I see the comments on YouTube and I see my Instagram DMs, and there are some questions that come up all the time. How do you actually make your application stand out? Can colleges tell between high effort activities and fake passion projects? Does all of this even matter, or is the process just random? Today, I'm asking these questions to a college admissions expert, someone with over a decade of experience getting students into Ivy League universities. No BS, actionable advice. Let's do it. Hey, Joseph, thank you for joining me here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Do you want to just briefly introduce yourself to my audience?
Absolutely. My name's Joseph Durand. I graduated from Harvard College in 2014, and I've been doing this college counseling and consulting stuff for about a decade now.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Hopefully our goal here today is to lock in with some of this admissions knowledge, get you guys, my subscribers here, some good tips, answer some of their high demand questions, and then hopefully we can take away from this interview some applicable, useful information that you can apply to your own college admissions journey to hopefully build up your own resumes. Joseph, one of the most common questions that I get asked is if going to an Ivy League college is actually worth it. Now, as someone like you who went through the Harvard pipeline, graduated, you're in your career now, do you feel like it was worth the effort that you put in during high school?
Do you want the real answer, the truthful answer, or the answer that I'm probably supposed to give?
I would honestly love the truthful answer.
Okay, well, I'll start with the answer I'm supposed to give. I'm probably supposed to say yes, but the real answer, at least at this point in my life, is that I'm leaning towards no. Mainly because there are things that I wanted to explore in high school but did not get a chance to because I was stretched so thin doing what I thought was necessary to get into the best college possible. Not even shooting for Harvard. I didn't even know that Harvard was a possibility. I just put the application out there and ended up getting in. That was kind of a shot in the dark. But the whole time I was focusing on what I thought were the priorities to get into a good school and had to deprioritize some of the things that personally I was very curious to explore, like acting, screenwriting, and more entertainment focused stuff. So I would say I'm leaning towards no, but the answer that everybody's probably expecting is yes.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. You never want to have to deprioritize your actual personal interests for the sake of just trying to build up a college application. At the end of the day, I think that one of the best ways to think about it is to work on the things that you're truly passionate about, the things that you want to do for your career in the future, and then ideally you excel in those things, and college applications can come as something secondary, as a reward for your hard work, rather than having to do it the other way around and actually missing out on the things that matter.
Exactly. I would agree with that.
Seniors, college app season is right around the corner, and it comes with two things: anxiety and questions. I make these videos to help, but nothing beats a personalized one-on-one approach, and Quad Education is as personalized as it gets. If you're interested in Ivy League schools, scholarships, or BSMD programs, Quad's admissions experts can help you maximize your odds of success. One of my favorite things about Quad is their match process, where they look at your resume and your dream schools and pair you with the perfect counselor to help get you there. They have over 400 consultants on their team across dozens of majors with a fantastic track record. It's not often that I give a brand a shout out on my YouTube channel, but this is something I think can actually help you guys. And your first consultation with them is completely for free, so you have nothing to lose. If you want to impress colleges, click the link in the description and tell them Preaching P sent you, or use code PREACH to get 10% off any services. Back to the interview. Another topic that comes up a lot is how Ivy League colleges are able to differentiate between top candidates. When everyone has the same grades and test scores, especially at that high Ivy League level, how do you feel that admissions officers actually assess students? Where do they look next?
Yeah, so once they see that you have the numbers, then it goes beyond the numbers to the essays, the extracurriculars, any other value that you add athletically or otherwise. If you already have published, independent research, that could catch their attention because you've already proven that you have the capacity to do that. Therefore, it's much more likely that you'll go ahead and do that again once you get on campus and thereafter. So you'll continue to put their campus, their programs on the map if you just continue doing what you've already been doing. So they look for those pieces of evidence in order to extrapolate what you will be doing for the next 4 years and after.
Okay, that's really interesting. I love the way that you kind of brought up that second point, in the sense that colleges are almost looking for students who will take what they're doing in high school, and some of the skills, talents, things like publishing papers, and bring it to their university, continue to do that. I think that's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about entertainment before. If you want to think about it in terms of movies, the application is kind of like the trailer for a movie for these admissions officers. If it's a captivating trailer, they're probably going to want to watch the movie. The movie being your 4 years and your acceptance into the university.
Yeah.
So if you cut together a really good trailer, odds are you're going to captivate the attention of your audience, the admissions officers, and they're going to come see your movie, i.e. let you into their school.
Love that. That's a really great analogy. The next question I had for you was just in regards to standing out, right? I know that when building your college applications, especially nowadays, it feels like it's more competitive than ever. The talent pool just keeps getting better. And personally, I just wish I had more actionable advice in a high school. How would you recommend going about standing out when building a college application? Is it the answer getting involved in more clubs, more competitions?
I would say perhaps it might seem counterintuitive, but the best way to stand out is to go deeper within. Find the thing, as I was mentioning, I wanted to explore things that I didn't get to explore. Don't make the same mistake I did. Figure out exactly and try a bunch of stuff so that you know what you like and possibly even what you love, what your passions are, and then disproportionately invest your time in those things. That's what admissions officers look for. A big mistake that a lot of students make is going for volume or quantity over quality. Admissions officers don't necessarily like to see that you have every activity slot full. They'd rather see maybe a few missing, but the ones that you do, you are wholeheartedly involved with and disproportionately invested into the areas that are points of excellence for you. So try a lot of stuff, try everything you can early and often. Find what you love, find your passion, and hone that. Disproportionately invest your time in that to elevate it to a point of excellence. And then it will catch the attention of admissions officers. And don't just go for quantity over quality. Go for quality over quantity.
Joseph, on a similar train of thoughts, what do you think is the biggest mistake that students make when building up their college applications?
Great question. In addition to what I said in the previous answer about quantity, going for quantity over quality, I think students trying to be somebody that they're not is a huge mistake. So my best advice on that front is to be unapologetically you. It goes along with my answer to the previous question. Find what you love, disproportionately invest your time into it, build your narrative, craft that narrative and your story around that so that everything that you're talking about aligns, it makes sense, it's comprehensive, and it makes you more than just a name or some statistics and numbers on a page. It makes you a real three-dimensional person to these people reading your applications.
That's a really great point you bring up, Joseph. Now, another question that I had for you was if you've noticed any trends with successful Ivy League applications. Are there like certain extracurriculars or details beyond stats that you think could help students stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. Get the most recognition that you can. Geographically, like literally, that means if you can compete for some sort of state title or championship, do it. If you can get to regionals, do it. If you can get to nationals, do it. If you can get international recognition, do it. Like each of these is another tier up. National will get the attention of admissions officers at elite schools. International will keep their attention. So that's one thing I see with a lot of Ivy accepted students is national and international recognition for a point of excellence, for a sport, something that they've done. Another thing that I might have mentioned earlier is published research. That is something, again, that these schools love because they're bread and butter. The lifeblood of the school is academic conveyance of knowledge and proliferation of that knowledge. And how better to do that than publishing papers in journals and other academic institutions that do so. So I think the national, international recognition, doing independent projects, getting them published, writing a book is another big one, starting a nonprofit. These are all excellent independent projects you can take on that will separate you from the pack and make you look like nobody else applying when you need to. And that's the key of applications. When it's time to look like everybody else, the numbers, the grades, the GPA, look like the herd. Get the same or better grades as everybody else applying. Then when it's past the numbers, don't look like anybody else applying. Be your own person, be unapologetically you, and uniqueness is the name of the game. Each thing that you mention should be a unique differentiator that you can say, and as few people as possible in the world also applying to that school or program can also say. That should be your goal. If only you can say that, then you should put that for sure.
That's such a great, like, actionable way to put it, right? Chasing after those high-level awards, things like publications, but I really like the point that you made about the stats, right? Making sure that you're at the same level or higher than anyone else. That's something I've always thought of when I was in high school as a great way to keep yourself locked into the general pathway. In this plight towards getting these high-level awards and publishing papers, things like that, you don't want to let the absolute fundamentals like your grades or your test scores just slip away. You got to lock in on all fronts. I love that.
Exact. Lock in on all fronts. I love that too. I love how you put that.
And what about the types of students who are successful? Do they tend to have certain traits or skills?
Yeah, I would say perseverance, resilience, dedication, discipline. Admissions officers love a good story, and a good story in screenwriting, just like in college essays, tells a hero's journey. And in the hero's journey, there's some villain or some trial or tribulation that they have to overcome, some big battle. Admissions officers love seeing how you respond to that big battle in your life, whatever it may be. It could take many forms. It could take infinitely many forms. Everybody's life is different, so everybody's path, everybody's trials and tribulations are different, but a lot of them get us to the same place of realizing who we are in the face of adversity, and that's what admissions officers want to see. They want to see who you are when adversity strikes, when Murphy's Law rears its ugly head and you have no option but to, go big or go home, so to speak. If you are the type to go big, an elite institution will want you, because in college, as in life, it's going to throw stuff at you. Like in a boxing match, there are going to be punches thrown, and you gotta roll with those punches. That's college, that's life. And admissions officers just want to make sure that you're able to do that at a high level before they admit you into a high-level institution.
That's super interesting to bring up, yeah. The next question I had was actually a little bit more of like a question that was a personal curiosity to me. And it's like, do you think that colleges can actually distinguish, honestly, between high-effort activities that students put a ton of time into and clubs that were maybe just made to pad their college applications a little bit?
Absolutely. And there have been measures that have been taken over the past decade, but even more in recent years, along the lines of how many hours per week, how many weeks per year do you do this activity, as well as the description in the activity descriptions on many of these applications. That's an indicator to these admissions officers of, throughout the year, how consistent are you with this activity? How invested are you in this activity? And they can tell based on the hours and weeks that you put in there. So try to make it as accurate as possible. And if anything, you're not going to be perfect on every single one. You're not going to have, an itemized Google Calendar for every single thing you've ever done. So if you have to estimate, I would say overestimate in terms of mathematical reasonability, let's call it. So if it's, 13 hours, round it up to 15. If it's 17, 18 hours, round it up to 20. Something like that. Make it kind of a round, even number so that they can add it up easily and get a sense for what your typical week looks like. But when in doubt, estimate and maybe overestimate just a little bit. Don't make something that's anything above 10 automatically becomes 20 hours that you've invested in. That's too much. But if it's 12, 13, you're not really sure which one, just put about 15.
That's a really practical way to go about doing things. I think the people who are especially entering this year's admission cycle will definitely benefit from that advice.
Of course. Yeah, because you'll often not notice some of the time that you put into things in terms of communication, logistical coordination, other factors that might not count as on the clock, but nonetheless are time that you spent, and even cognitive time, even just thinking and spearheading a plan or coming up with a plan to execute. That's also time that you're spending on these things.
I think from an outside perspective, when going ahead and looking at college applications, sometimes it can feel a little bit random on where students tend to end up, where they end up getting accepted. From your experience being an admissions counselor for over a decade now, do you feel like luck is a genuine factor in the college admissions process, or how random do you feel like the admissions process really is?
Another wonderful question, probably on everybody's mind watching this right now. I would say the answer to both questions, maybe surprisingly, is yes. There is randomness involved in the college application process, but at the same time, there's also luck. But simultaneously, you can create your own luck, which is less lucky and more intentional. In terms of randomness, it's all about your application getting into the right hands, in front of the right eyes, in front of the right reader at the right time of day, when your story strikes them and resonates with them in such a way that they become your advocate. That's some part of the randomness, part of the luck component of it. But the way you can create your own luck and make it less lucky, so to speak, is every step of the way, every decision, every choice that you make should align with adding value, not necessarily just to your college application, but to yourself, to who you are, because that you're going to have to be unapologetically you on your college application. So if you've put that work into building yourself up and you know who you are really, really well on that college application, that will resonate and captivate the admissions officer reading it. So in that regard, if you take advantage of every opportunity that puts you closer to your goal, that is creating your own luck so that you're one of the ones who gets quote unquote lucky, or at least so it appears externally from everybody on the outside looking in, when in reality, it's more a grind to create that luck, recognize and seize that opportunity that happens behind the scenes. But then when it actually happens, it seems like it's overnight, but it's not. It's really not.
That's totally valid. One of the other things that comes up a lot between me and my audience is just in regards to like the nitty gritties of admissions. Behind the scenes, how colleges actually go about evaluating students. So I wanted to ask you, from your experience with your knowledge, how do you think that admissions officers at a school like Harvard actually go about evaluating students? How do they gauge? How do they scale students? Is it like a point system?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll get into Harvard specifically, but most schools nowadays, they try to have a holistic, comprehensive view of the student. They try to get as three-dimensional a picture as possible of who this person is that they're about to let into their community. Harvard specifically, as do many other schools, actually has a 1 through 6 rating system that they use to evaluate their applicants in 6 different components, which are academics, extracurriculars, athletics, personal, recommendation letters, and alumni interview. And different schools call these things different things. So Stanford might call a recommendation letter support, or Stanford might call the personal part intellectual vitality, and they do in fact. So the idea behind this 1 to 6 grading system is if you get a 1, you're basically number 1 in their mind for being admitted. That's kind of the top of the heap. If you get a 6, that's basically unread or adds no value to your application, possibly even negative value. So you're aiming for that 1. That's what you want across the board. But if you have certain things aren't as strong as other things, but they're not your passions. Let's say you're an academic and you love doing research and publish papers and write books and things like that, and you score a 6 in athletics, but a 1 in academics and extracurriculars, you're most likely going to have a 1 or maybe a 1 minus as your overall score. It's going to skew towards your strengths because at the end of the day, even at these elite institutions where the vast, vast majority of applicants are rejected just by default, these admissions officers are not looking for ways to kick you out or not admit you or reject you. They're actually looking for ways and reasons to admit you. So give them those reasons.
Switching gears here a little bit, how important are college essays in the scope of college admissions?
Critically important, especially at the highest level. You have the numbers, which are basically gatekeepers. Once you put the key in the lock in terms of GPA and open that first gate, and then once you put the key in the lock with standardized testing, a high SAT or ACT score, and open that gate, then all bets are off in terms of numbers. The numbers cease to matter anymore. Now it's all about the story that you're telling. It's all about what you've done, because actions speak louder than words, meaning activities, and the story that you craft there. So not even just the essays, but the descriptions in your activities can be little mini stories. So those can be considered little essays. And if you do a good enough job, you can tell a microcosmic story within each essay, as well as a macrocosmic story as a synergistic sum of the parts in the whole application. So the essays are absolutely critically important, especially if you do it strategically and have an overarching idea or goal for what you want to put forth, what you want the admissions officer to come away with, because you can subtly and sometimes even subliminally, just with a choice of words, your diction, your syntax, your tone, help them to come to that same conclusion. You don't necessarily want to force that conclusion upon them. That's not good convincing or good persuasion. The best way to persuade somebody, including an admissions officer, is to make them think it's their idea, and then they'll be convinced.
And given how important college essays are, just as a more fun question for you, what do you think about the use of Chat-GPT in college essays and students kind of Chat-GPTing their way through this whole admissions process?
I think it's kind of fun and funny, because at this point it resembles kind of a cat and mouse game. You have, AI is this infantile technological breakthrough that's it might be in its infancy now, it might be in its nascent phases now, but it is exponentially learning, and it will grow up very, very quickly. So recognizing the power of AI and its almost universal applicability to multiple fields, education just being the tip of the iceberg, among others. Students are trying to leverage this power to, at the very least, write their first draft and then add human touches to them. That's a very common practice among students. But on the other hand, admissions officers and admissions offices are smart too. So they know students are doing this, so they're using the same or similar AI technology to actually detect whether or not AI has been used at some point in the process. Now, both of these are very nascent, so it's cat and mouse, because as one improves, the other sees what it's doing and improves to catch up, and then the other sees that the let's say the tracker has caught up, so it'll, the students will implement a new wrinkle in their use of AI in the essays, and then the admissions officers and offices will realize, oh, the students have done something new, so they'll kind of ramp up their game, and it just keeps ramping up, which is honestly really good for AI at the end of the day, to be kind of in the middle of this back and forth between students and admissions offices. But it's a very interesting cat and mouse game at this point, and definitely something to follow in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the use of AI and ChatGPT in this has been pretty crazy. I've had some subscribers actually email me college essays that seem like they're pretty blatantly written by AI. Like, it doesn't seem like it's authentic or kind of genuine in that sense. I feel for admissions officers in the sense that they have to look through these essays, and it's hard to tell, right? It's not, especially the better and better AI is getting, it gets pretty tricky.
It can be tough, but there are certain indicators, such as repeated syntax, the same sentence structure but saying a new idea, or saying the same idea that was said previously but in a different sentence structure, a different way, that is purely redundant and is not adding anything. You could kind of tell at that point that the person inputting the data points or the parameters for the AI may not have done a good enough job, so the AI ran out of things to say and thus has to repeat itself, but in a new way to make it feel, fresh or authentic.
Keep that in mind, y'all, okay? We want to keep high integrity college essays here, but if you see someone's essay and it's looking a little bit suspect, all right, keep these things in mind. I want to ask this final question from the perspective of some of my audience members, some of my younger viewers out there, who are maybe in 9th or 10th grade. If you had to give advice to yourself at that stage of high school, to someone who's motivated and eager to get ahead in their college admissions journey, what kind of advice would you give them to get started on early?
Well, you said it right there. Get started early. It is never too early to start, and try everything or anything you're even curious about early. Be willing to fail hard, fail fast, fail often, because those failures are going to teach you something. Failure is actually critical to success, so don't shy away from failure in your earlier years. In fact, go full head on into it, because that's going to teach you what you like about whatever you're doing, what you don't like, how you could pivot to not fail and actually win, to succeed, and it will inform your future decisions about what you do and what you disproportionately invest your time into, your passions. Try a lot of stuff. It's trial and error sometimes to find your passion, even at this level, even after doing this for a decade. With some students who really aren't sure what they want to do, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to get some hands-on exposure in certain things that you're at least curious about in order to know, yes, I like this, or no, I don't like this, or with a little qualification, no, I don't like this, but there's a part of this I do like. that in something else that I find, I would want to retain this little part or this component of it. And you can't have that perspective unless you've put in the work and you've gotten that hands-on exposure, which you have to go out and get. You can't just wait for things to come to you. You have to actually go out and get it. And oddly enough, that go-getter mentality and mindset is something that these admissions officers really, really love to see. So if you work on just that mindset earlier on, as well as exploring your passions to find that passion, you're gonna have the go-getter mindset, you're gonna have passions that are captivating to the admissions officer, and you're gonna, if you have somebody like me helping you with your essay, you're gonna craft a captivating story that puts your best foot forward and shows that you would be a valuable candidate to add to their campus.
That's fantastic advice. Joseph, this has been an amazing interview session. Thank you so much for your time. For all you guys watching, go ahead and check out the Quad Education link in the description. That'll get you some great admissions advice. You get a free consultation call with them. Joseph, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.
You too.
Shout out to my man Joseph. It was fantastic interviewing him. I've been thinking about doing a part 3 to our reacting to subscriber college application series with someone like Joseph. If you guys want to see something like that, let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you're a senior interested in getting some consulting for your college applications, having an actual expert review your college essays, your application positioning, and just overall increasing the level of your application, go ahead and click the link to check out Quad Education in the description. Tell them that Preaching Peace sent you and you'll get a nice little discount. I appreciate each and every one of you watching this video. This has been Pratik. Peace.